Hello, Brad here, just to say we're super proud that the Friday 5pm podcast is sponsored by the Malt Miller, the UK's best home brew store.
We use the Malt Miller for all of our homebrew experiments, as well as tapping them up for advice and binging on their awesome YouTube channel all the time.
That's why whenever we release a homebrew video, we put a recipe kit live on the Malt Miller, so you can brew with the exact same amazing ingredients that we did. The same ingredients used by pro brewers.
So alongside the Malt Miller's nitro-flushed hops, cold-stored yeast and milled-to-order malts, you can pick up recipe kits for our 5 Points Best Bitter, Russian River West Coast IPA, and now the fastest beer in the world, a hazy session IPA that goes from grain to glass in less than 48 hours.
Sign up to their newsletter at tinyurl.com/Malt Miller to get 5% off your first order. With the Malt Miller's amazing customer service and Johnny's 48-hour recipe, you could order the ingredients on a Monday and be drinking the beer by the weekend.
Speaking of which, it's Friday.
It's 5pm.
So enjoy this week's Friday 5pm podcast. Good afternoon, Beer Geeks. It's Friday, it's 5pm. Hopefully you're having your first beer of the weekend. Brad and I have had quite a boozy week with a lot of filming, haven't we?
Mate, we've filmed, 5 videos this week? And
5 videos.
5 videos. And I've been drinking in pubs a couple of times this week as well. So
yeah, man, your Instagram is crazy. You're all over the place. I've barely been outside.
Well, you are writing a book, which I'm not doing, and I've just finished a big project. So on Wednesday, I just thought, you know what, I'm gonna have the day off, and I'm just gonna go and ride my bike and go and hang out and drink lovely cask ale in the sunshine. So that's what I did. But
yeah, interestingly, I'm at a chapter of my book where I'm writing about the issues of drinking cask ale in the sunshine because of how quickly your pint warms from 10 degrees to a very undrinkable 15 or 16. So I'm talking about beer styles that maybe would survive the direct heat of the sun or perhaps the stool by the fire. Best, which has involved me going onto some very scientific websites that's going to make for some very dry copy unless I'm careful.
Blimey. Yeah, I mean,
what were you drinking?
I had some London Pride. I was drinking some Colonel Pale, and for my sins, I did drink a little bit of Guinness.
Ooh,
so I had a bit of a mixed mag. The place that I went just did particularly good Guinness. So
did you go ice cold?
I don't think they do ice cold. They're not a trendy pub. So
I think it's the other way around. I think it's trendy not to serve ice cold now.
Yeah, in that case, I mean it's a great pub, so I don't think it was ice cold, but it was tasting great. Yeah, I met an artist. I went for a pint at 11 a.m, Johnny, which is obviously
good
a little bit
Lord.
Concerning. But I'd walked around a junk market all morning, and then I was like, right, I'm going to go for a pint. And there was only one other guy sat outside the place, which is always a bit funny, isn't it? So anyway, I got
because it was 11 a.m. Yeah.
I got a chat to him. He was a local artist, like really great artist, and had lived quite a life. So we were talking about various things, sort of his drug exploits over the years, and sort of 3-day benders and going to different wacky clubs and all this sort of stuff. So it's highly entertaining.
And is this why I didn't hear from you for 3 days? Because you joined him on one.
No. But it was great. But yeah, man, we filmed 5 videos this week, which is an insane amount of videos for sure.
Yeah, I mean, we even, I think we talked briefly about Guinness in the episode we shot on Monday, doing the What Even Is Baltic Porter, inspired by our live show with Pohala.
Yeah.
So yeah, we talked lots about dark beer and what a Baltic Porter is. We won't spoil what it is here, other than to say that all 3 of the ones we had were absolutely bloody delicious.
Yeah, amazing.
We weren't even going to drink the last one because they're all pretty strong. But then we're like, oh well, we'll film talking about it, and if we want to, we'll put it in. And it was probably the best of the 3. It was amazing.
Sensational stuff. Like, I must say, I'm quite a big fan of that style. I think they're really interesting beers. Obviously, you're going to fall off your seat if you drink too much of them, but just great, really quaffable for the percentage. Just amazingly quaffable.
Yeah, sort of in that lager, like Doppelbock from Munich kind of tradition. It's beer that does not drink like it's 8%, and gets you in a lot of trouble. I don't know whether I published it because I can't remember whether it was too embarrassing, but I definitely did a film at Stark Beer Fest, which is the strong dark beer festival, sort of the winter version of Oktoberfest in Munich. I think it did go live. If it is live, I'll put the link in the descriptions box. But yeah, that's where people are drinking litres of 8% beer. Sorry, 7.9. Let's not exaggerate, Johnny. And I feel like Baltic Porter could do something very similar.
It's maybe they should be called Danger Crispy Boys. Because they've got that crispy quality that you just want to keep going.
Bradley, Risky Boys. Come on, it was right there.
Hey, Risky Boys. I like it. Yes, Risky Boys. That's a good one.
So yeah, we did Baltic Porters. We've also done a little taste test travelling through the British Isles, mainland Britain, drinking spontaneous lambic-style, Gers-style beers. So we've got that video coming out soon with some delicious and very rare beer. And then what was the final one we did, Brad? I can't even remember.
We did a video about Irish craft beer, which is very cool. There we
go. That's the one. Yeah, so that is coming out very soon. That's a sponsored video, so we've teamed up with Bod Beer, who are the Food and Drink Board over in Ireland, to sing about the glorious things happening over on the Emerald Isle. And we've been trying to visit there for ages, and eventually sort of went, it's not going to happen for a while, so let's find a solution. So we've got a cool concept there. And then obviously there's this week's upload.
Yeah, man. The elephant in the room, as everyone has been saying all over the Twitter sphere and the Instagram cesspool. Yeah.
It was, my voice definitely got higher in that intro, didn't it? Because it was... We ummed and ahed over whether we should do something about it, because we try to mix up the serious and the less serious content on there, but definitely vary towards the more like longer term issues, the longer term theories and the longer term styles in craft beer, rather than being super reactionary. But this one it felt like, although there was a big reaction to it right now, everyone was either furious at Cloudwater for going into supermarkets or super excited for the opportunities that it created, both for Cloudwater and for Rock Leopard, Echo, Queer Brewing, and Good Karma. But actually, it does have some really long-term implications about access to market, about potential pricing of big New England IPAs that cost a lot to make, and raise lots of questions, which we won't go into here. This is your weekend wind down, but if you haven't watched the video, please do, because it's, particularly if you're in the UK, it's a big old question about the best way to both reach new customers of a diverse background, but it has the potential negative effect of affecting those that have been there from the start and have been supporting these businesses. So it's an emotional debate, as the comments kind of showed.
100%, mate. Like you say, we won't get too deep and heavy, but we wanted to present quite a balanced view on a very sort of difficult and impassioned subject. Cloudwater, they're gonna get lots of hate for what they've done going into supermarkets, but at the end of the day, then it's not like they're the first people to have done it. And in your article, you've gone into the reasons why they've done it and all the rest of it. So let's, I guess, leave that to people to discover for themselves.
Yeah, I'll put a link to the Good Beer Hunting article I wrote, which is much more in depth, in the descriptions box next to the video as well. But I'm really keen to say that the comments that we got were, on the whole, absolutely brilliant. Like, so much engagement, so much awareness of the issues, so much support for everybody involved while being aware of the potential pitfalls of this. And, there were a couple of, I think they're called cunts, who came on and accused people of being woke and accused Cloudwater of whitewashing. And somebody even tried to claim that releasing the collab box was sexist and racist. Which was quite the stretch.
How they got to that, yeah. That's a weird one, isn't it?
So we put those people down politely, but mostly engaged with some wonderful comments. And Brad, you had one from Vinny, one of our Patreons, that we thought was a great example of why we did the vid.
Yeah, Vinny just said, superbly balanced video, gents. Supermarkets are where I generally get my core session beers from. So he's talking Jaipur, Jute, Pilsner, Urquell, etc. And go to my local independent for the special stuff I've come to love over the last 4 or 5 years. He says I easily spend 4 or 5 times the amount at the independents that I do in the supermarket on a monthly basis. But that's also my drinking habits evolving with time. I'm excited to try this pack and support the excellent smaller breweries who are getting a well-deserved boost in visibility. So, I think that kind of sums up what we were hoping. Things like Cloudwater being in a supermarket might bring more people that aren't drinking craft into craft. And, obviously Vinny is now 5 years in, but he's still it's kind of hard. You can't have your daily beers be an £8 can. From
an
from
8% can,
or an 8% can. So there is a space for your Pilsner Urquell, your Jaipur, your Cloudwater, whatever the main kind of stalwarts, being at an affordable price, and hopefully it's a gateway into a bigger world. And I think I said in the video, like £3 on the door, sort of a kind of analogy to, clubbing or going out. If you pay £3 to get in somewhere, that's affordable.
What Paul's whole point was that not everybody wants to go into independent bottle shops. Like, I remember first going into them, and it is intimidating as hell. You go in, there's 500 beers on offer. You don't know enough to even potentially ask the questions. And add to that, if you're from a different ethnic background, or if you're really worried about the price point of all of this, there's lots of little things that maybe we're not aware of that might put people off using independents. So giving them a stepping stone, giving them that supermarket is really important, I think. Whereas Vinny's argument, lots of people are saying, nobody's going to go to independent shops anymore. There is no study into this, but I just don't buy that. Like, I think most of us are like Vinny. When we do our weekly shops, we might pick up some of the cheaper stuff. But, I go to an independent bottle shop probably twice a week.
Yeah, I mean, it's a balance, isn't it? Like you say, you're like, oh yeah, those look appealing. They're easy to get a hold of. I can get a 4-pack, and that'll do me for a couple of nights when I'm not sort of going too crazy. I just want to chill out and mong out and watch a film or something. But then, you're buying more sort of serious, exciting beers from an independent and enjoying that sort of process. It's like going, vinyl record shopping or something.
We all listen to Spotify, but I'm still buying vinyl records.
Exactly. It's similar thing, man. Like there's still going to be a space for it, and I mean, if I was an independent bottle shop, I would be pissed off. But it's a funny old issue. And
I mean, I was chatting to a local bottle shop. I won't name them because it was just a friendly personal discussion, but they were saying that, as a result of lots of these moves, they've just become more and more sure that the future of independent bottle shops has to include having an on license, because what it means is, that's going to increase the average spend every time somebody comes in if they stick around for a beer. So it's creating a kind of cafe bar / bottle shop hybrid in these small spaces. So a little bit like a micro pub, but with a great beer fridge, or lots of great beer fridges. And I think that's definitely right. We're working in a capitalist system. And Paul Jones of Cloudwater said this to me as well. We're working in a capitalist system, and we've got to work within it the best we can while demanding better. And I think that, bottle shops have every right to be pissed off, especially with the other stuff that Cloudwater have done in the last year, which again is in the Good Beer Hunting article. But, the best thing they can do is definitely to try and get on licenses. And if that's not possible, that's a really tough situation, and we need to make sure we support them through it.
Yeah, and also, the thing, the ace that they have up their sleeve is that they are passionate people that are they're your beer geeks. They know what they're selling. Whereas if you go in a supermarket, the dude stacking the shelves, he doesn't give a monkeys about what the beer is. He doesn't understand. He's got no comprehension of the beer. You can't talk to someone about beer in a supermarket. So they're always going to have that service, that level of service, that level of understanding that no supermarket is ever going to be able to replicate. So
100%.
as you sort of journey down the path to discovering more about craft beer, you're going to seek out people that know more than you do, and that are going to be able to, like, tell you what you might like. Same as going record shopping. When, I like this kind of music, they might say, oh, have you heard of this artist? Well, you're going to like these guys, blah, blah, blah. And it's all the same. It's all about connecting passionate people with, people that are in a service that know about it. And that's what independents do so well.
Absolutely. So long may that continue, and long may even the breweries that are in supermarkets continue to champion that point of difference. So we've got a question this week. Let me just dig it out. There it is. It's not a recorded question. It's an emailed question that comes from Xander, who's also a Patreon. This is Patreon fueled, more Patreon fueled than ever.
Great stuff.
So yeah, thanks for supporting us, Xander. So the question for this week's podcast is, why do we only have major hop growing regions in Germany, South England, Czechia, USA, and most recently New Zealand? Why, for instance, is there no Belgian French hops when there's such a history of Belgian beer, and likewise for the Baltic regions? He also adds, on an unrelated note, loving the Patreon forum. You can join the Patreon forum for $1 a month by going to patreon.com/craftbeerchannel, and you can hang out with Xander and us. And about 250 other more interesting people, of course. It's a great question. The really simple answer is we don't only have major hop growing regions in Germany, South England, Czechia, USA, and New Zealand. We've got them in South Africa. We've got them in Australia. We've got them in countries you said earlier. Belgium and France have them. There's lots of hops being grown further east in Europe, and indeed up into the Baltic states. Slovenia in particular has quite a few hops. The reason we don't really talk about that is because a lot of those varieties were grown for macro brewers. So they were the high alpha but lower flavoured or less interestingly flavoured hops. And that's why we don't really talk about them. They're going into the big hops, the big breweries, while the hops that we talk about that are grown in these other, I think probably fair to say, more progressive beer countries are being grown more specifically with a premium, with premium farmers and then for premium beer. But that said, there are some fantastic, Belgium's kind of the exception to that. Why don't we talk more about it? And I think that's just because Belgium doesn't really enjoy very hoppy beer. So again, they're growing a lot like in the UK. They're growing, soft and subtle and herbal and spicy and brambly fruity hops that add bitterness and just a little bit of character to their very yeast-driven beers. Generally, hops grow in sort of the temperate climates. So certain latitudes around about where Central Europe comes, a little bit north, the slightly colder states of Central Europe, and the same down there, South Africa, the colder parts of Australia, New Zealand, obviously a very temperate climate, and the Pacific Northwest in Oregon and Washington State. That's where great hops are grown. But I think there's even hops grown in Texas and stuff. It's just, and Mexico, of course, has wild hops which have resulted in talus. So hops are absolutely freaking everywhere, but great hops tend to spring up near the demand for those hops to some extent.
Like you say, they're absolutely everywhere. I mean, it'd be interesting if some of these lesser-known countries that are growing hops, if they were to suddenly go, hang on a minute, Yakima Valley, those guys are selling, a pound of hops for X amount of money. Why don't we try and grow that hop and, sell it for a better crop price? So I wonder, I don't know whether the terroir is suitable enough for those sort of crazy new world massive hops that we've all come to know and love, if they could be grown in the sort of lesser known regions. But I wonder whether we'll reach a point where, those sort of farmers that are not stuck, but they're kind of, they're really tied to macro brewing processes, whether they might kind of wake up one day, or, their children might have a side project where they suddenly start growing really exciting hops.
I mean, that's already been happening for decades. We already have UK Cascade. It tastes, smells, and acts very differently to the Cascade plants grown in Cascadia. But that's definitely happening, and there's crossbreeding with Cascade and other hops happening all the time to produce new ones. But it takes a long, long time for a cross-pollination to happen for that hop to actually hit market. Like years and years and years of tests and of disease resistance tests and of flavour tests and of all of this before they really hit the market. But if you ever see a beer that's got a hop in it that's called HBC, that will mean it's an experimental hop. It hasn't been given a name yet, and they're putting it out to certain breweries to give it a little go, and it'll have a number next to it. But I mean, that's... Lots of farmers are now diversifying a little bit. And also, these hops that are grown or were grown purely for the big guys, there's a little bit of interest in bringing those hops back. So when we went to Hewkins Hops down in Kent and talked mostly about Fuggle, there's also Bullion is grown down there. And Bullion was famously used in Guinness. And it stopped being used in Guinness because it wasn't high alpha enough. And I think it was even replaced by a Slovenian hop. But now they're growing Bullion again because it tastes like orange peel. So if you use it in a different way, you get completely different characteristics. So 5 Points have definitely done it. I think they released a beer called Bullion, and the label was gold. So I mean, there's so much experimentation and so many hops that we thought were shit being used in different ways suddenly being really exciting. And if they're not, the UK's growing Cascade now because they want to get in on that. So there's loads of exciting stuff that's happening, mixing up between the regions. But there are kind of limits. Maybe we never will see a French Cascade because Cascade doesn't suit the climate or something like that.
Yeah, it's exciting stuff, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's so exciting. The same's happening in malt. There's maltings that are bringing out what are called sort of heritage malts, so malts that haven't been grown for a long time because they were hugely inefficient or the flavours weren't trendy for today's market and stuff like that. So the same's happening in malt and in yeast, as we discovered when we went to Lallemand. They're discovering new yeasts and working with breweries all the time, and that's where a lot of the innovation is coming from in beer, rather than the brewers coming up with clever ideas. It's the people providing the ingredients, supplying them with new flavours they can play with.
Yeah, it's amazing. I think that's the thing we sometimes underestimate is the kind of industry and the farming practices that are, these exciting beers are only around because of all this development that's kind of like going on throughout the world in various forms, whether they be in labs or whether they're sort of cross, variants of different hops in test fields and all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, I'd love to cover more things like that about the kind of technology that goes behind the ingredients of beer. I think that'd be super cool.
Yeah, I mean, it's been on our list for a long time, hasn't it? We were hoping to go out to the US for the hop harvest in 2020, but we all know what happened. And so hopefully in the next year or two, we'll be able to visit these places at these important times and chat to the people that are doing God's work in the scientific side of producing these beers. Right, that's all we've got time for this week. The only thing to add is that we have now confirmed our next live show. It's happening on Friday the 14th of May on YouTube, and it is with the one, the only Omnipollo.
Amazing.
So we will be joining the founders at the Church of Omnipollo, which is their first brewery, and tasting some of the first beers to come out of that brewery, the first Omnipollo beers that aren't contract brewed. So that's going to be dead exciting. And
virtually joining them, Johnny.
Virtually joining them, of course.
Sadly.
Yeah. But they're going to give us a tour of the brewery while we're there, and having chatted to them quite a lot before, they're really interesting, really engaging people, have so many great views on, using beer as art and beer's place in the world and why they experiment so wildly with what they do and why they have so much fun with the kind of the culture of beer. So it's going to be a really great night. Don't just expect silly beers, expect, some really insightful thoughts on the future of beer. The boxes are not live yet. They are going out to bottle shops all over the country, and then we will list those places you can go buy them and support your independent bottle shop, and it will also be available from beer merchants shortly after that, and we'll point you to that when it's there as well. But 14th of May, 7:30 is the time and the date to stick in your diary.
Fantastic. I'm off for a risky boy, Johnny. I don't know about you. It's Friday, mate.
I might indulge in some risky boys. The Bubble Podcast is brought to you by the nerds behind YouTube's Craft Beer channel. Head to youtube.com/the Craft Beer channel to watch this week's video and over 400 more exciting episodes. If you love what we do, please do subscribe and even join our Patreon at patreon.com/craftbeer channel. Love and beer.